Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
All right, Craig got the
Democrats.
message, but we're going to do a call and response thing here. Let's try it again. Everyone on Zoom can unmute for a second. Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
Great. Okay, now everybody on Zoom can mute yourself again. Welcome everybody in here, out there. Happy New Year. We hope everybody had a restful couple of months off since our last meeting and that you're recharged for the fights ahead this year, which have, of course, already begun. The first weeks of this year have already made one thing painfully clear. We've seen an illegal invasion of a foreign country, open threats to blow up NATO and seize territory by force, and the murder of civilians by masked federal agents, among many other indignities and humiliations carried out by our own federal government. And we know this is just the beginning. These are not people acting like they expect to face consequences. And that's why the stakes this year couldn't be any higher. We have to win this fall by a margin big enough that all the voter suppression they're clearly planning simply won't be enough to stop us. You know, we laid really important groundwork last year by passing Prop 50. So now we have the opportunity to deliver those kinds of wins, but we have to follow through. So throughout the year, we're going to be working with the West Side Democratic headquarters to help flip Congress. And later this year, we're going to dive deep into the Santa Monica elections, as we always do, to make sure our city continues to lead on these issues when the federal government is falling short. But for the next few months until our March endorsement meeting, our focus is really going to be around our state elections. We've had a bunch of candidates come through already last year, and we're going to continue for the next few months with that. Many of these races are going to be decided in the June primary effectively, and a lot of them are wide open with a really strong field of impressive Democratic candidates. So that's why we're dedicating so much of our meeting time right now, the beginning of the year, focusing on these state elections. Looking ahead, on February 25th, we're going to hear from former Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Barrera. We're also going to have Stephen Bradford, who's running for Insurance Commissioner, and Oliver Ma, who's running for Lieutenant Governor. And we'll also be joined by our Mayor, Carolyn Terosas, and we'll hear about a proposed local parcel tax that would change how our school district's funded. So that's coming up in February 25th. On March 11th, we'll be joined by Congressman Eric Swalwell and our Treasurer and Lieutenant Governor candidate Fiona Ma, Senator Josh Newman, who's running for Superintendent, and Sheriff Robert Luna, who's running for re-election. And then on March 25th, we'll hold our endorsement meeting on Zoom, and we'll weigh in on all of these statewide races and all of our LA County judicial elections. So please save those dates, February 25th, March 11th, March 25th. Tonight, we've got a packed agenda with several candidates who are seeking our endorsement. And later this evening, we will hear from candidate for Superintendent of Public Instruction, San Diego School Board member Richard Barrera. We were also expected to be joined by Assembly Speaker, or former Speaker Anthony Rendon. Unfortunately, he had a family emergency and just let me know he had to cancel, so we'll try to reschedule him next month. And then closing us out this evening will be Sam Sukaton, who's running for Board of Equalization. Katie Porter, running for governor, of course, is on her way here now. She's just a few minutes away. She's stuck in traffic, as happens when you're going from Pasadena to the west side on a school night. So we'll give her a few minutes. But first, I'm pleased to introduce our first guest for the evening, a candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Josh Fryday, the California Chief Service Officer appointed by Governor Newsom, where he leads the state's volunteer and service corps programs. Josh. Yeah, I have this one for you. Kind of go That chair is for you. Can I come down here? Sure, whatever you want.
Can I come hang out down here? How y'all doing, Santa Monica Democrats? You good? Let me ask you this. I just want to start off by asking you a quick question. Who is tired of our country being in crisis? There you go. Raise your hands. Raise them high. Who is tired of our country and our communities being attacked by these ICE thugs? Raise your hand. Let me hear it. Who is tired of an affordability crisis that is crushing our working people here in California? Who is tired of living in a climate crisis that is driving a wildfire and an insurance crisis that no one knows better than this community right here? Who is tired of that? And who is tired of this administration with this president and his asshole henchmen trying to light our democracy on fire? Who's tired? Who is ready for a different story? Because I'll tell you, I am. I'm ready for a different story, and I'm ready for that story to begin right here in California. And let me tell you something that I've learned about how we get through a crisis. And I learned it while serving in the United States Navy. And it started on a Friday afternoon when I was stationed in Japan and a 9.0 earthquake hit. Now, we're all from California. We're used to earthquakes. This thing lasted 3 minutes long. It immediately led to a tsunami that instantly killed tens of thousands of people. It displaced hundreds of thousands of people. And because I was on the base where the nuclear aircraft carrier was, in a few days we started to get detection of radiation from a place called Fukushima. And my captain called me in her office and she said, "Lieutenant, you have 3 hours to grab your sea bag and go down and join the admiral that was overseeing the entire effort." Well, that was actually supposed to be a really exciting weekend for us because we were going to call home and tell them our parents that their first grandchild was on their way. My wife, who's a school teacher, was pregnant with our first kid. So she was immediately evacuated. I was sent out to sea, and I got to be part of Operation Tomodachi, which ended up being one of the largest humanitarian aid and disaster relief efforts in military history. Why do I share that story? It's not because I was the hero. I wasn't. I played a small role in a much bigger operation that was there to help people, but it's because of what I learned about how to get through a crisis, the kind of crisis that we are all living through right now. And that's in order to get through a crisis, everybody has a role to play, and everybody has to play that role. And you, my friends, are here tonight playing your role. So thank you. How many people are in their first Santa Monica Democrats Club meeting? I know I met a couple. Can we give them a round of applause? First time showing up for their country, showing up for their community. Well, here's where we also need you to play a role, because you have an opportunity in this election to elect a new generation of Democrats. A new generation of Democrats who can protect California and who can deliver for working people. Working people like my parents, who didn't have college degrees and often struggled, but they believe that they could send their son to great California public schools all the way from kindergarten through the UC system, which is what I got to do, and that he'd be able to have a better life. People don't believe that anymore. And we also need to elect a new generation of people with new ideas, new energy. And so I'm going to give you one idea. I want to test this on you. You tell me what you think. When I came back from the Navy, I came home and I built Next Gen Climate, and I started by Tom Steyer. We fought the Keystone Pipeline. We fought to accelerate clean energy in this country. And I started to see that we had a whole generation of people who were lost, who were disconnected, who were untethered. So when I became mayor of my hometown, I created this program where if you graduated from one of our high schools and you got into our local college and you committed to 2 summers of service, you got a free ride to college. We called it a local GI Bill. You serve your community, we help you go to college. Well, this idea caught the attention of then Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom. Has anyone heard of him? Who came to me and he said, "What would it look like to scale this program?" So when he became governor, he created a cabinet-level position for service and community engagement and job pathways, which is what I get to have now. And that program is now called College Corps, where we are creating thousands of debt-free pathways for students across the state of California, young people to serve their community, to tutor and mentor, to take climate action, to work in our food banks. And we help them pay for school, including for the first time our dreamers, who we're helping pay with this program. We also created the first climate corps in the country here in California that then became a model for many other states and Joe Biden's American Climate Corps. We created a youth service corps for our low-income youth so that they can understand what it means to give back and to serve in their community. And altogether, the California Service Corps is now bigger than the entire Peace Corps. You got to be proud about that to be in California. Here's why I'm running for lieutenant governor. I'm running for lieutenant governor because I want to scale these programs so that every single young person in our state has the ability to give back and to start their career, whether you're going to a 4-year college or 2-year college or no college at all. California is going to be the first state to have universal service and job pathways. And the lieutenant governor is the only person who sits on all 3 boards of higher education, the UC Regents, the CSU trustees, and the Community College Board of Governors. We are going to build service and job pathways and pre-apprenticeships into our education system. I also, because climate and fighting for our environment, like all of you have in this community for so long, has been such an important part of my career, I'm running for this position because the Lieutenant Governor sits on our Coastal Commission, the Ocean Protection Council, and the State Lands Commission. And let's not be naive. We cannot be naive. Look at what he just did in Venezuela for oil, and then talking about Greenland. They are coming for our coasts. And we need leaders who are going to be strong in protecting and making sure that offshore drilling is a thing of past and it is never part of our future. And that's why I'm running for this position. Finally, number three, and this is personal for me. This is very personal. We have the 4th biggest economy in the world, and we have the worst housing crisis in the country, and that is shameful. And it is personal for me because before I turned 18, my brother and I once counted, we lived in 17 different homes. I understand the pain that so many of our families are feeling right now when the landlord raises the rent and you have to move. And then you have to move again and again. We need to build the homes to make sure that there's a new promise in California, that any teacher or firefighter or welder, if they want to, should be able to live in the city that they are expected to work and protect us in. And that is why I'm proposing a plan as Lieutenant Governor to create 1 million units of homes on our underutilized public lots. We have 140,000 acres of public land between our school districts and our universities and our campuses where we could be building housing right now, not just for our students, but for our teachers and our faculty and our workforce. We can get this done. In order to accomplish all of this and to protect California, though, we need leaders who can deliver, and it's what I've done my entire life. It's what I've done at the local, the state, the national, and the international level. As an officer in the Navy, stationed in Guantanamo, I stood up for human rights and the rule of law in front of the United States Senate in uniform, and we got the Pentagon to change their policies towards detainees. Then I came back and I told you I built Next Gen Climate, where we fought the Keystone Pipeline and we fought to accelerate clean energy. As Chief Service Officer, I have now created the Service Corps that is bigger than the entire Peace Corps, and I'm running for this office to deliver for you. And here's where I need your help, because you all have a role to play. I joined the military because after 9/11, I thought our leaders failed us. Do you remember that we launched the longest wars in our nation's history, and do you remember what they asked us to do? They told us to go shopping. I will never let us make that mistake again because the stakes are too high with the crises that we are living through now, which is why I'm going to be calling on a whole generation of young people to be active in their community, to serve, to make change, and it's why I'm going to be calling on all of you. Because we desperately need change in this country. We desperately need change in this state, and we desperately need to do it together. I hope you join this campaign. My name is Josh Fryday, running to be your Lieutenant Governor, and I'm so excited to be with you here today. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Josh. So just a bit of housekeeping just came up is that Congresswoman Porter, who's here.
Congresswoman Porter, how are you?
Really glad to see her. So I don't want to break news. There's a family issue. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Katie come up. We're going to do her portion. She's not. She can stay as long as she can stay. We're going to come back and do our Q&A with Josh after that.
Yes, thank you so much, Josh. My daughter has, I believe she has appendicitis, and so I need to get home to get her to the doctor, and so I'm really, really sorry. But it's either get her there by 9 and see what we can do, or it's like the whole whole thing comes apart. So I'm really sorry. My appendix actually burst in 2018 when I was on the campaign trail for Congress, so I have recent experience combining campaigning and appendicitis. It can be done. I am running for governor because I'm very squarely focused on California's future. This is a big field, you know that. It's a lot of people who have a lot of past accomplishments. I think one of the things that makes me stand out is thinking about what happens next in California. What are we going to leave for our children and grandchildren in California? We have to stand up to Donald Trump, but I'm going to be honest with you. Every candidate in this race on the Democratic side will do exactly that, and we all have evidence and proof of our willingness to do that. What makes me stand out is that affordability is not just a talking point to me. It is my life's work. I am glad that Democrats are talking about affordability. It's about damn time, because California has been unaffordable for most Californians for decades. We didn't get into this housing crisis overnight. We have not failed to fund childcare just last year. These are generational problems in California, and we need someone who's going to do things differently in Sacramento, who's going to dig into the weeds and make good policy decisions so that we can bring down families' biggest costs. We cannot afford to just nibble around the edges at affordability. Families do not have a problem that can be solved by skipping a latte. They are hundreds of dollars short a month, some of them thousands of dollars short a month. So my plan is to build more housing and make it cheaper when we build it, not just because we build more, but make it cheaper. How can we do that? You've heard that phrase, time is money. It's true in housing. If we built our apartment housing here in California at the same pace as other states, including states like Colorado that have good environmental and good worker protections, our housing would cost 20% less. That is hundreds and hundreds of dollars less. We still have to have environmental rules. We still have to have labor rules. The other way we can drive down the cost of housing is to do what California and Californians do best, which is to innovate. Innovate in building materials, innovate in construction techniques, innovate in design, and innovate in finance. That can also make housing much cheaper. The second part about bringing down costs is childcare. After housing, and depending on how many kids you have, childcare may even be a bigger expense than housing. We have failed over and over again in this country to invest in childcare, and we are leaving approximately $1.6 trillion of economic productivity and budget growth on the table because we are not doing what other countries are doing, which is treating childcare not as an extra, not as something we do to help out moms. It is an economic issue, and it is a major way that California is going to be able to attract young people to this state and keep the young people that we have, as well as allowing our workforce as it ages to be able to have elder care and that caregiving workforce. This is an investment that we must make if we are going to be able to keep up with our global competitors, and it's a major way that California can differentiate itself. We've heard a lot in this race about the budget and what California is going to do about the budget. So I want to mention two things to you about this. First, we have two kinds of budget problems in California. We have money that goes up and down too much, we have instability, and we also don't have enough. The instability piece is incredibly important. It was only a few years ago that our current governor called me and said, I have so much money, what should I do? And I said, childcare. Didn't listen. So that's Jerry Brown was on the right idea with the rainy day fund. The problem is he called it a rainy day fund, and it hasn't rained in California in 20 years. So we keep trying to raid the rainy day fund. We've got to do more budget stability. Our budget instability comes from our progressive taxation, and that's something that I believe in. But when you have that system of progressive taxation, the stock market goes up and down, assets go up and down, capital gains goes up and down. You have more instability, and we need to plan for that. The second piece is making sure we have enough revenue. And here we are facing a big dark hole that Donald Trump is creating. Some of you have heard of the Midas touch. Everything you touch turns to gold. Donald Trump has the shit touch. Everything he touches goes to shit. And that is exactly what is happening with healthcare, with clean air and water, so many areas of our life. This means California is going to have to make decisions to protect our most important values. And here would be my touchstone for doing that. For me, there's a difference between spending and investing. Spending is something that you can do today or you can do it tomorrow. You enjoy it, it might be helpful, but you can also do without it. You could do it next year. Investing are things that have a return on the dollar. If you don't do it now, you do not reap the rewards going forward. So if we don't take care of people's health care now, including every single Californian, regardless of immigration status, they will get sicker and that will end up costing us more. We have been down this path in California. We cannot afford to go back. If we do not invest in clean energy, we will not have the manufacturing jobs of the future, and we will not be able to meet our energy demand, which is expected to go up by 50% in the next 20 years. That's driven by two things, electric vehicles and data centers primarily, and we need to make sure that we're going to have that energy demand. So building clean energy, that's an investment. If we do that, it'll come back to us in terms of economic growth. Some of the things that we spend money on, we got to keep spending money on, and some of the things we have to figure out what is really working and what isn't. So to use one example, the high-speed train, we've either got to build it or not. We cannot continue to pour money into it and then announce that it's not getting done for another decade or 2 or 3. So it's really, really important that we take a look at what our dollars are best spent on and we make those investments. So things like education, things like childcare, things like healthcare, green energy, every dollar you put in comes back to you in our economy. That's ultimately how we grow our tax base and get out of our revenue challenges. Love to show you all this on a whiteboard sometime. It takes a really, really big one to talk about the California budget. I am just close on a political note. I know this race, I hear from voters every single day. This is my 4th event of the day. I know there's a lot of people out there who say, well, it's such a big field. I don't know who's going to win. I want to know who's going to consolidate the lead. So let me give you a quick fact. When Gavin Newsom ran in 2018 in the primary, he had every advantage. He was the sitting lieutenant governor. He'd been running basically for 8 years, getting ready for it. He has a lot of money. Let's face it, he's hot. He had everything going for him. Do you remember what percentage of the vote he got, Josh? 33. Okay? So that was in a very, very small field. You can't even tell me who Gavin Newsom ran against, most of you. So in this field, the win number is going to be relatively small. It might be 20, it might be 25, it might be 19. That doesn't mean that the winner cannot consolidate Democrats, deliver the general election, and lead California forward on a united basis. We are biggest risk right now. People always say to me, who's your opponent? Who are you worried about? In case you haven't noticed in this race, it's raining men, all right? But my biggest opponent isn't any one of those gentlemen. It is apathy and a lack of momentum caused by a California electorate that isn't used to having to flex its muscles. We've had 2 governors who served 8-year terms and had relatively straightforward elections. This race is a little different. It's exciting. Our lieutenant governor race is a little different. We've got good, strong, interesting candidates. As Democrats, as people who believe in democracy, I think that is a good thing, that you get to make a choice. But you need to make one. You need to donate, you need to volunteer, you need to vote at convention, you need to vote on primary day. Because if we do not have a clear leader in this field, we don't get a candidate up over that 19, 20, 22% level, we are at risk of 2 Republicans. Now, we know that every Democrat loves to cry wolf about 2 Republicans. We've heard it so many times, we don't believe it. But take a look at the polling in this race. Every single poll shows that the top 4 candidates, there are 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. I'm proud to be one of those Democrats, but those polls, having met Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton, those polls should frighten you. So it is really, really important that we invest in this governor's race, that we get active in it, that we get off the sidelines waiting for somebody else to choose our next governor. That choice is yours, and I would be honored to have your vote. Thank you so much for your understanding, especially Josh. Thank you so much for letting me come and go and get my daughter to urgent care. Thank you so much.
Let's hear it for Congresswoman Porter.
Okay, so Representative Porter. No, I'm just kidding.
Good to see you all again.
We have some questions for you. You know, the lieutenant governor position, it's not just vice governor, right? There's very specific responsibilities of the office. Can you kind of walk us through what your understanding is of those specific roles that are prescribed in the Constitution for this position and what your experience is dealing with those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So the lieutenant governor has formal powers and informal powers. Formal powers, we talked about some of them earlier. It's the only person who sits on all three boards of higher education here in California. And that includes the UC Regents, the CSU trustees, and the Community College Board of Governors. And I am a proud product of California public schools, all the way from kindergarten through law school in the UC system. And it's our education system that is the reason we have the fourth biggest economy in the world. But we have to maintain that. And we have to improve it, and we have to evolve it, and we have to make sure that it has the resources and the support to actually succeed. I'm really proud that I was just endorsed by the California Teachers Association and the California Federation of Teachers, because they understand how important this role is and the future of education is for our state. And so when I think about the specific role around higher education, I talked about how do we think about making our education system one that engages our young people and that actually prepares them for the workforce. So right now, the LA Times recently did an article about some of the work that I'm leading that talked about how now there are over 500,000, 500,000 disconnected youth in California. These are young people between the ages of 16 to 24 who are not in school and they're not working. They're untethered, disconnected. We need to make sure our education system engages them, gives them something to be passionate about, excited about, and makes them feel like they have a place in our economy, which is why we need to make sure, and it's why, I'm using this, I want to run for this position, so that we can build in pre-apprenticeship programs, service programs into not just college, but into our high schools. So we're engaging people differently. Thank you, I will need that. Appreciate that so much. And right now I'm working on something called, that was my Marco Rubio moment.
Right.
I'm working on something called Credit for Prior Learning with the head of the community colleges. And here's how it works. And we're piloting this in Pasadena, where high school students who are going to spend the summer as part of a Habitat for Humanity program helping rebuild houses in Altadena, get to be part of something, get to contribute, get to learn skills, are going to receive college credit towards either community college or credit towards a certificate in the trades. We should be providing those opportunities for every young person. And imagine if we do, we get to put in a whole new generation to work as tutors and mentors, helping us rebuild, working in our food banks. So it's a way that I think we lift up all of our communities by fixing our education system. Second, I was on the environment. Lieutenant Governor sits on as I said before, the Ocean Protection Council, the State Lands Commission, and the Coastal Commission. And it's very important for me. We have to double the amount of clean energy that we have. We just do. In order to stay on track right now, which is going to be hard, we all have to be honest with ourselves, it's going to be hard. To stay on track to hit our climate goals of being carbon neutral by 2045, we have to have leaders that wake up every day making sure that we are moving forward on clean energy and we are not going back on offshore drilling. And it's really important that we have leaders who have fought for this their careers like I have in that position. And then I'll just finish on this. Lieutenant Governor also has informal powers to be a champion for working people, to be a champion to make sure this is a state where everyone feels like they belong, no matter what they want to do, no matter who they love, no matter where they come from, that this is your home. We need leaders who have had the experience creating those kinds of communities and making sure that moving forward, this remains a state for everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. So the next governor is going to have a lot of voices in their ear. What are the issues that you think you're going to be the loudest on for the governor? Where you'll be the leading voice for their administration shaping the policy, and how will you leverage the office? You talked about the formal ways. How will you leverage their office to influence other issues too?
Yeah. I love that question because this is also how I think about this role. That, listen, I've had this front row seat working in the governor's cabinet for the last 7 years about how hard that job is. We are the biggest state in the union, 40 million people, really complex problems, really hard challenges. No one person, no matter what they tell you or promise you, can tackle those alone. And so what I want to do, what I'm excited about for this position, is to go to the next governor, whoever they may be, and fortunately I have a good relationship with everyone who's running right now. Go to them and say, let me be your partner. Let me be your lieutenant. I was a lieutenant in the Navy, so I'm quite comfortable with the role. Let me be your lieutenant on things like housing. We're the worst housing crisis in the country. We have got to fix it, and we have to have urgency around this. We got to build, I think, with the speed of need, which is unbelievably urgent right now. And so I want to go to the next governor and say, let me be your partner on tackling housing, and also let me be a partner on making sure that we are creating real job pathways for everybody and engaging all young people in our society. And those are the issues that I'm going to focus on as lieutenant governor.
Great. You talked about your background of doing the volunteer and service initiatives. How do you see that service and civic engagement training translating into the concrete solutions for the big issues that the state faces, climate resilience, homelessness? I mean, the idea of service and your background there, how does that translate?
Yeah, several reasons. And this is obviously personal for me. I had the chance to serve in the United States military. Unfortunately, we live in a society right now where most people don't have a chance to be part of something and to give back. And I think that's a mistake. I think in a democracy where every single one of us has to be engaged, we have to send that message that we need everybody, that everyone has something meaningful to contribute and something of value. And so I'll give an example on the big issues facing our state. Housing. I just talked about how in Altadena now we are employing young people to rebuild with Habitat for Humanity and then creating a pathway into college for them or a certificate in the trades. I was here when the fires hit, the fires that were so devastating to this community. I was here on the first night of the fires with the governor. I was in Pasadena at a shelter, the Pasadena Conference Center. And I was there, the reason I was there is because the Red Cross was setting up the shelter for over 1,200 families with my California Service Corps members. My California Service Corps members were the first ones on the ground deployed to make sure that the seniors who had to evacuate, the kids who came in with ash on their faces, were taken care of. When we invest in service, when we invest in our communities, when we invest in sending a message that everyone has something to contribute, we can solve any problem. And so I believe if everyone served, if everyone was empowered to give back, we could solve every challenge, including the reality that we have an epidemic, according to the last Surgeon General, an epidemic of loneliness in our society, where we are so isolated and disconnected from each other and polarized and divided that we have an epidemic of loneliness. That drives so much. You know what the research shows of the loneliness? For the Democrats, you should care about this. We should care about this. The research shows that if you are lonely, and think about how many people in our lives we know who are lonely, you are more susceptible to conspiracy theories. Think about where our democracy is right now. So when I think about service, think about building homes, I think about our climate core, making our communities more resilient, and I think about building connected communities that are the kind of culture I experienced in the military, where we give a shit about each other again, where we protect each other, where we defend each other, and we take care of each other. And that's the society that I want to live in, and I want that society to start right here in California.
To ask you just a little bit about workforce development, what specific partnerships, programs would you champion to ensure that Californians get jobs, but also good jobs with career advancement and in the right fields that are emerging?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's why this role is so critical, because I think we have to make sure that our higher education system is actually aligned with the workforce. And I'll just give this one example. When I was building the Climate Corps, that became a national model for the American Climate Corps. I was meeting with our former Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. You might remember him. He and I served in the Navy together, knew each other since we were in the Navy. And he said to me, the challenge with this infrastructure bill, which is the most important piece of climate legislation and the IRA that we've ever passed as a country. The challenge is we don't have the workforce and the welders to build the turbines to solve climate. And so the reality is that we have to align our education system with actually producing the jobs that we need. And so one specific example is working with the hospitals, including the UC system hospitals, which are the biggest hospitals in our state, and making sure that our service members are working and interning in healthcare and doing that their service programs in healthcare, and then it's connected to a job in healthcare. So whether it's healthcare, whether it's clean energy, whether it's teachers, one of the reasons I think I was endorsed by the Teachers Association was because I've been focused with my California Service Corps on the teaching shortage. Do you know that we have a teacher shortage in California of over 10,000 teachers? That means we don't have enough qualified. Our incredible teachers, including a teacher sitting right there, knows that our teachers are overworked and they're undervalued, and we don't have enough of them because it's such a hard job. So the California Service Corps has been focused on engaging young people at an early age into the classroom, exposing them to education, showing them a career path, making sure they graduate with less debt so they can actually afford to become a teacher, and then addressing our teaching shortage at the same time. That's how we connect our social problems, whether it's climate change or healthcare or education, to our higher education system in a way that works for everybody.
So when you think about the federal attacks on civil rights and democratic norms going on, how would you leverage your platform to defend those basic tenets of our democracy, voting rights, protecting immigrant communities, ensuring Californians' fundamental freedoms in the face of federal policy?
Yeah. Fantastic question, because it's the reality of where we are right now. Here's how I would do it. I would do it the same way that I did it in uniform when I was a naval officer. When, as I said before, I stood up in the United States Senate in uniform against what was happening in Guantanamo in our name. And I stood up for human rights, and I stood up for the Constitution, and I stood up for the rule of law, and I said, we can do better. These are our most fundamental values, and we have to stand up for them, especially when it's hardest. And I'll tell you right now, if people in the military were operating and acting the way that these ICE thugs are, they would all be court-martialed. And we need to make sure that they are held accountable for what they are doing. It's why we need to keep pushing. And you know what? When we push, it works. So keep pushing. Keep being loud. We have to keep protesting. We have to keep standing up. And I'll make this last point. I'll make this point because I think it matters. I do. I think it matters that we as a party are willing to elect people who have worn the uniform. Because when the president federalized 4,000 of our National Guard troops, I was the only state official to go down to the base outside of LA, right here, to go meet with our troops, to go meet with the leadership and be briefed on what was going on. And I walked on base, and what I saw was exactly what I would have seen in Afghanistan. And I'll tell you exactly what I said to the New York Times. I said, if he can do this here, he can do this anywhere. It's a test. And I said, not only is this illegal, as a veteran, it is appalling that they would use the military in this way, deployed on domestic soil. And we need to be strong about standing up against that. We need to fight against that. And we need voices with credibility to push back and say, this is not what the military is used for. And that's what we're going to do as Lieutenant Governor.
Okay, well, if you have time, we have time for some audience questions. We can go to Craig first, and then Mike.
Hey, Craig.
Talk about affordability in education, and I'm going to date myself. Because I remember when the community colleges, UCLA, and then Cal State, that were free. We owe what we have now to the Jarvis Initiative. That free school was tied to property values in housing. the father and the grandfather, that is Prop 25, 2020, Project 2025. So I'm wondering specifically, I doubt very seriously if we'll ever get back to free education, but what kind of stance can you do to fight to see where the dismantling of public education is not a reality here in California?
Thank you, Craig. Let me give you an example of how I want to address this. I told you about College Corp, the program I created that's now providing debt-free pathways for thousands of students here in California, including here in many schools in Los Angeles, UCLA being one of them. Here's how the program works. If you commit to 450 hours of service, whether that's during a disaster, working at a food bank, tutoring, mentoring at a school, we give you $10,000. That $10,000 is important because that's how much a Pell Grant student, a low-income student, has to either come up with when they're in college because of the cost of college, has to either come up with by taking out loans, which is why we have a student debt crisis in this country, or by working. So when I was a Pell Grant student, I cleaned golf carts at the local golf shop. We now, because of this program, have thousands of kids doing really meaningful work in the community, and we're paying for college. They're graduating debt-free. I'm running for this position, Lieutenant Governor, to scale this program so that we can make college more affordable for those who need it most. That's a specific example of how we can make college more affordable and create opportunity and belonging for everyone in the state of California. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
So I asked this question of one of your opponents as well. So in the state of California, we have 1.5 million households that are low income and paying more than 50% of their income for rent. And we have another 1.5 million households, not people, households, that are low income paying between over 30% and up to 50%. And I resonated very much with your life experience of people losing their homes when the landlord raised the rent. I hear about we're going to build these houses on public land, and that's all great. But how much of that is actually going to address those 3 million households in our state? And if you are going to address it, where are we going to come up with the money to do it? And last part is, have you thought about rent subsidy as a cost-effective way of reaching a lot more people faster in that group?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's how I think about this. Listen, I'm not an economist. I did take econ in high school, though. And what I learned about was supply and demand. We have a supply issue in California. We do. It's one of the reasons that rent's so high. It's not the only reason. We know what private equity groups are doing to come in and buy out communities, and there's several reasons. But one of the issues, one of the reasons, the real reasons, is that we have 3 million too few homes to meet our needs. So I do think about the need to build as being really critical. And the reason that I focused on the underutilized lots is because I want to be honest with you about what I can do as Lieutenant Governor. And because the Lieutenant Governor sits on those 3 boards of higher education, I think we should be looking at our campuses and our colleges that have land. Let me just give you this example. The CSU system, the biggest system of higher education in the country here in California, only houses 13% of their students. So you think about, I just think about the opportunity to be creative and in order to pay for it, to drive down the cost, because this is public land. This is our land where we could be building, we can be working with responsible developers to build houses that then take off the pressure for everyone else in the community. And also imagine if we had communities where people didn't have to sit in their cars for 2 hours a day. You know what the #1 contributor to greenhouse gas emission is in the state of California? It's transportation. It's people sitting in their cars because they work in LA and they have to live in Riverside. And so I want to imagine a world where we actually solve this housing crisis in the long term by building what we actually need. Now, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of pain in the short term, and we should be looking at all options on the table about how we relieve that pain in the short term. And we have to figure out how we can make sure in the long term that we're building a state where we can imagine our kids being able to come back and actually live in the communities they grew up in, which is not the reality right now. And that's what I want to focus on fixing.
Okay, I see Jerry's hand up. Did anyone on Zoom want to ask a question? If not, we'll go to Jerry. Oh, I see there's something in the chat.
Am I going to Jerry or?
Let's go to Jerry, and if you have a question on Zoom, raise your hand.
Yes, Jerry.
No pressure, of course.
Thank you very, very much, and thanks to the Church in Ocean Park for hosting this event. Thank you, John, and all you wonderful Blue Democrats. I'm honored to be a member of our Santa Monica Urban Forest Task Force, soon to become a full standalone commission, and because Santa Monica takes care of its trees. I'm also a proud member of probably the largest coalition ever in Santa Monica, the Santa Monica Great Park Coalition. And I hope you go to the website. The Democratic Club voted to support it overwhelmingly last year. Most every one of our boards and commissions, Environmental Commission, Rec and Parks Commission, Arts Commission, on and on and on, are supporting this once-in-a-lifetime endeavor to create a wonderful, great park when the Santa Monica Airport finally closes at the end of 2028. So I hope you look into it, and I'd like to hear some more about this because we don't hear enough about it. People take it for granted. We need parks. We're short on parks. People I know on the Urban Forest Task Force, all the wonderful work the landscape department does, but people take it for granted. But we can't live without our trees. So I'd like to know what you're going to do. It sounds like you're going to do a lot for the environment, but I want to know what your concern is in this field and how we can get your support to follow through and create this vision of a great park.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that question, and I'm smiling because I'm remembering someone I got to work with in this job, which is one of the highlights I've had in this whole position that I have in the governor's cabinet, when I got to work with Dr. Jane Goodall, who we lost this year. And for her 90th birthday, we, with our Climate Corps, committed to plant 90,000 native trees in the state of California in her honor. And we did that with her. And it was not just an honor, but it's impactful. And also it empowers people. When you give them the ability to work in not just plant trees, but work in an urban garden or to work in a park, it changes how you feel about yourself, and it changes how you feel about your environment. It's why when I created the Climate Corps, we focused on 3 areas. 1, fire mitigation work, home hardening, and clearing defensible space. 2 was edible food recovery, because a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions is food that should be composted or could be diverted to help those who are food insecure, and making sure that it gets to them rather than in landfills. And 3, urban forestry, to make sure that we are planting trees in communities, especially those communities that have been underinvested in our shade deserts and heat islands. And that's what our Climate Corps has been doing, and I'm running for this position to scale that program so that we keep producing more parks like yours across the state of California.
Okay, now I see Brooke is on the Zoom. So Nate, let's make sure we hear her audio.
Hi guys. I wish I could be there with you. The reason I'm not there in person is I was displaced from where I live. So my question for the candidate is, I'm a teacher. This is the second time I've been displaced in 5 years. Priced out for both reasons, but in this particular case, it was a threatening landlord who didn't want to fix mold. My question is, there are countless people that I found I am not alone in this. There's so many people going through this. I'm asking this question on behalf of all the countless people I've talked to that are enduring this. There are corrupt landlords that are making life hell for people right now. They are threatening to call ICE on tenants. And there is plenty of empty housing, but the landlords have such high prices that it sits empty. So I love the idea of building housing. I'm not opposed to it, but I feel like every candidate I've heard talk about the housing crisis never addresses what's happening, having eviction moratoriums, having corrupt landlords not be able to get away with what I just experienced and countless other Angelenos have experienced, having actual strong tenant protections, and having all these units that have sat empty for years around the city or jacked up to crazy prices actually be held accountable. And I'm sorry if I seem a little heated, but it's sort of a lot to absorb to have moved again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. Well, Brooke, you deserve to be heated. Am I looking at Brooke right now?
Yes, yes,
Am I,
yes.
Are you looking at the back of my head?
No.
There you are. Are you, Brooke, am I looking at you now?
I think it's the back of your
but they
head,
will
but
take
that's
care of it.
fine. That's fine. Whatever.
I just pick on
I'm
it.
still
Look ahead.
figuring
All right.
out Zoom, so you're good.
Brooke, I'm sorry you're going through this. And I'm sorry for anyone who has to go through this. And the reality is that you are not alone, that this is happening all over our state. And my wife is a school teacher. She has been her whole career. And her colleagues face the same instability and devastating impact that you're facing right now. And it's true. We have too many vacancies in our buildings right now. Is one of the issues that you highlighted. I just looked it up. LA's vacancy is about 4.5%. Think about how many buildings there are in LA. 4.5% is a lot of units. We should be, as leaders, we should be going to landlords and either putting in, you're right, more eviction protections, or we should be going to landlords and developers, and we should be creating incentives to make sure that they have 0% vacancies. They shouldn't be allowed to just hold those places empty. I agree with you. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the exact answer is. So I'm not going to come up here and tell you that I have an answer, but I'm going to come up with the reason I looked it up recently and know that it's 4.5% is because I think it's shameful. I think it's wrong. And I think that as leaders, we need to figure out how either we incentivize or we make landlords fill those vacancies. So that's one. And I also think, I've talked about this, the housing, why it's personal for me, why my family's been in your situation, Brooke. It's how I grew up that way. I know how much anxiety it creates. I know how hard it is to think about having to go to school the next day or work the next day when you're not exactly sure where you're going to be living. And in the richest state in the Union, the richest country on earth, it is shameful that we allow this to happen. And my promise to you, Brooke, is that we're going to do better, and I'm going to wake up every day fighting for you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you. And students, because they're being threatened by landlords that they'll call ICE on these families that are very vulnerable. So them too.
Part of that is exactly, thank you, sorry on your point on that. That is where it is so critical that we have leaders that send a very clear message to everyone in our community that we have your back. And our strength in California is our diversity. And we have to make sure that we are not allowing these ICE thugs to come in and terrorize our communities. And I'm going to stand strong every single day with our communities to protect them.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Sean, do you have?
I put my hand up, but I don't know how it doesn't work.
Do you have the mic? He went out. He's looking for a question out on the street. Okay, this is the last question.
Hi, I'm Brandon. So a lot about higher education in this conversation, and it's hard to have that conversation go without, addressing something of an elephant in the room, which is AI. And I'm just curious, 3 years ago, plenty of people will go around telling you, learn how to code. And now there are tools that are basically eating the software industry as we speak. And so how do you prepare and granted, very difficult question, hard to predict the future, things are complex, so on and so forth, but how do you get such a massive system to be nimble enough to prepare students for something resembling the world they're actually going to face, as opposed to some of these legacy curricular programs that are going to be slow to respond to that, are preparing kids for a world that frankly doesn't exist or will not exist. And that's not even to say anything of sort of the pedagogical crisis that is when, it's hard to even get students to actually do their own homework without getting help from the AI. So I don't expect grand plans, but, just where you're at on those types of issues.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question because it is true, it's coming, and we have to be eyes wide open about it. And I think about it a lot, And let me share, you've mentioned, there's several layers to what you talked about, and I'll say two things. One is, I think the power of the lieutenant governor position, quite frankly, the power of any state leader is the ability to bring people together, to solve problems. And it's what I've done my whole life, and it's also, it's what you learn in the military, that when you have a mission, which is to, whether it's around education or whether it's around the future of work, to solve that problem, you got to work with people from different backgrounds who think differently than you. But that's how we solve problems. And so the convening power to bring together the stakeholders, which of course are going to be in part the big companies, but it obviously cannot just be them. It's got to be our teachers, it's got to be our educators, it's got to be our families and our parents to come together and say, how do we solve these? So one is making sure that we are actually having the conversation. And I say that because I'll tell you right now, these conversations are not happening in Sacramento like you think they are. Promise you. And it's scary. And my concern is that we, as a party, are going to put our heads in the sand like we did with globalization and tell people that it's going to be okay and then not take care of them. And we're seeing the repercussions and consequences of that in the Midwest right now and in communities across America who we lost trust with, credibility. And so they elected some guy who promised them a bunch of lies, but they believed it. And so what we have to do, well, the reason your question is so critical is we cannot put our head in the sand when it comes to AI. We've got to address it head on. And I think if we address it head on, and if we are intentional about it and thoughtful and convene the right people, we actually might have an opportunity. And what do I mean by that? Let's take the teacher shortage we talk about. Not just the teaching shortage, but the fact that my wife has 26 kids in her classroom. She, no matter how good she is, and she's a great teacher, by the way, if you're listening, honey, I love you. No matter how good she is, she can never give every kid the individualized attention that they need. So if we're going to have a whole generation that are no longer going to be sales associates at Salesforce or coders, let's deploy that entire generation into the classroom where instead of 26, we have 8 kids per teacher. And we're giving every kid in California the attention that they need and deserve, and then let's pay them well. And let's make sure we figure out a structure that covers that. That's an exciting plan for me. But right now, we are not having those conversations. That's what scares me. And but those are the conversations I want to lead if you guys all elect me Lieutenant Governor. It has been so fun to be here today. Let me finish with this. You can clap. There you go. Thank you. Appreciate you. Let me finish with this. Change in this country has never come from Washington, D.C., or from Sacramento, or from City Hall. It's come from people like you coming together on nights like tonight to saying, we want change, and we wanted something different. And I'm running for Lieutenant Governor because I do believe we desperately need change, and I think we need a new generation of leaders to go to Sacramento and push for change. And I want to do this with you. So I would love to have your help. I would love to have your support in this campaign. But most importantly, after we win, I want to come back here and I want to have that AI conversation with you. And I want to talk about how we build that park. And I want to talk about how we put more teachers in the classroom, because that's what democracy is. We can never look away. So thank you for coming tonight. I hope you come next week and the week after that. Please go to joshfryday.com. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Josh, for being here. And of course, I didn't get to say thank you, Representative Porter. I'm sure she's tuned in on Zoom now that she's heading home. Okay, so now we're going to be joined shortly by Richard Barrera, who's running for superintendent, and Sam Sukaton, who's running for Board of Equalization. But before that, we have a few announcements, and we're going to go first up to our programs VP, Michelle Grant.
Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for being here tonight. A couple of save the dates. We will have our annual Sammys, the fundraiser, on Sunday, March 15th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll be announcing the location shortly. We hope you all can make it. It's going to be a fun afternoon, and it will not interfere with your Oscar plans for that evening. Also, what was announced at midnight, No Kings 3, Saturday, March 28th. My co-chair, Leslie Bracker, hi Leslie, and I will be out there again at Palisades Park. We hope you will join us. Hopefully, we'll have 5,000 plus again, which will be really wonderful. Yes, good goal. He was. March 28th, it's a Saturday, it's 2 months from today. We want to have more tabling out there, so besides Indivisible and your Santa Monica Democratic Club, if there are other organizations that make sense, please get in touch with Leslie and myself. We'd love to have you out there. One other thing is, as programming and for the Sammys, I am in desperate need of some help with a graphic designer. So if anyone out there in the club is either professionally or just for fun into graphic designs, please reach out to me. I could really use your help. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Now we have a political update from our Political Action VP, Sean Kaloji.
So we have some endorsements that will be coming up in the coming months, none tonight, but keep coming to our meetings because it's going to be exciting when we get to decide on the candidates we've heard from. But one candidate we did endorse was Dr. Shai Roy, who's a longtime member of the club, community member, and Santa Monica College trustee. And we because we endorsed him, our members participated in something called the pre-endorsement conferences. And that happened last weekend. And what happens in that is delegates, party delegates, LACDP, state party delegates, elected officials, elected official appointees, and club delegates all get to vote on who gets recommended for the Democratic Party endorsement. And because we have such a wonderful organization and such large membership, and thanks to your efforts, Santa Monica Democratic Club was awarded the most club delegates in Assembly District 51 and the most club delegates in Senate District 24. So we were the most influential club in this district. And I think that that was something that we're proud of, and I think, you know, our membership and our organization kind of shows up. And what that meant for our endorsed candidate was we helped Dr. Shai Roy get a resounding victory in this part of the process. So Shai Roy received 54% of the support in the pre-endorsement conference, and that was thanks to our organization, our organizing efforts, and to our clubs. So thank you for that. And with 6 candidates, it's really hard to get that. And what that means is he goes to the next stage, which is a pre-endorsement caucus at the convention, and he would need to achieve 60% of the support there, and then be considered for the party endorsement. So even though there's so many Democrats in the race, because of his connection to the community, his connection to our club, he's now in a good position to potentially get the party endorsement, and that's thanks to Santa Monica Dem Club. So I think we're excited about that, and the convention is coming up. I don't know if John or, wants to give more information about that.
Thanks, Sean. So yeah, really exciting news about Shai Roy, and we're glad to get behind him early on. Somebody I've personally known since the first day I walked into the Democratic Club back in 2010. The convention, though, coming up. So it's going to be up in San Francisco. We're going to be considering endorsements for all of the statewide and legislative races at that, and also Congress. So For example, we heard from candidates for governor and lieutenant governor and the other constitutional offices. All of the candidates that are coming through Santa Monica Dem Club this year and last year are all going to be at the convention, all competing for delegate votes. The threshold there is 60%. With the way we have top two, it can be hard to clear out in the primary phase and establish yourself as the front runner. And the party endorsement, if someone's able to get that, really is a great way to establish yourself as the best Democrat or the front-running Democrat. So we'll see if any of our candidates in some of these contested races are poised to do that. We, of course, as the Santa Monica Democratic Club, our endorsement for most of those races is not until March. So I won't be there. I'm a delegate in my own right. I won't be there advocating for any specific club in most of those races because we haven't endorsed. We did endorse for the Senate race, so I'll be there to support Shai. We did endorse for the treasurer race, so I'll be there to support Tony Vasquez. And then, of course, the incumbent races that are not going to be too contested where we already endorsed. Then there's the legislative races. So Shai is actually the SD 24 Senate race, that's our district. It's the only Senate race that is going to have an endorsement caucus at the convention because all the rest of them either got over 70%, like, for example, Scott Wiener is running for Congress in the Bay Area. He got over 70%, so he doesn't have to have another convention caucus. He'll just get endorsed by the party. But then if someone's under 50%, if no candidate made it over 50, like Shai got to 54, then those are done. There is no additional endorsement vote. So it's only a few races that were just in that, like they almost got across the threshold, and those are the ones that get taken up by the convention. So it should be fun if anyone has like a whole weekend free and money to spend to just fly up to San Francisco. It's a really great time. You can come up as a volunteer or an observer, and that's how I first started doing it before I was a delegate. Okay, next up, we have it's a new year, so it's time to renew your membership. We have our membership VP, Mike Soloff.
Hi, everybody. I think a lot of people had questions about the membership, so let me offer a few things. First is our dues are for a calendar year, so 2026. But if you paid your dues after October 1st of last year, it covers you for this year. If you haven't, you have to renew. The easiest way to do it is online. But if that doesn't work for you, if you go to our website, you can also, there's a way you can do a check and a way you can even do cash. Some people gave me that tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, either my personal email, mike.soloff@gmail.com, or membership at SM Democrats? Yes, at smdems.com. Last thing I just wanted to say, because not everybody knows this, so our basic membership structure is for a two-person household, it's $50. For one person regular, it's $35. We have a hardship rate of $15, but if even $15 is too much for anybody, we take whatever they can pay or nothing and waive it, because this club, even before I got involved with it, has always been committed that nobody should stay away from participating based on money. That's a true democratic big D and little d principle, and I'm very proud of this club for that. So if you know people who are hesitating because, times are tough or whatever, tell them they can still join the Santa Monica Democratic Club and just reach out to me or John to make special arrangements. Thank you.
Okay, and next up we have our legislative report from our legislative VP, Isabel Story.
Hey, everybody. Well, the state legislature especially is in full swing right now. They came back from their winter recess. All the bills are being introduced for the year right now and through February 20th. So that's it. And then after that, our club will be choosing which bills we're going to endorse or any we want to oppose and working to get some of those passed. So I know, we're mainly concerned these days with what's going on at the federal level, which is really egregious, but we're very lucky that we live in California, where we can take positive actions here, first of all, to run our state well, and also to push back against what's happening on the federal level. So a lot of the top bills that are going through now are about protecting California, either protecting our immigrants, the people on our streets, and also protecting our programs that are being cut at the federal level. Because it's such a busy time right now with all the bills being introduced, we're going to be meeting every Monday at 6:30. If you, for the next few weeks, and then after that, we'll probably space apart the meetings more. If you're interested in being involved in this, either contact me tonight or send an email to the Santa Monica Dem Club email saying you're interested in the legislative committee. We have a couple people here who've been involved. Stand up if you've been involved in this in the legislative committee. We've got Dennis here. We've got Lynn back there. We have Kay over here. We really appreciate the people who get involved, because what we do is we discuss some of the bills that are being put forward. We vet them, for the club, so we're able to look more in depth than we can at a big meeting like this. And then we bring to you the bills that we think are the most important to be endorsed. So just to give you an idea, because John told me I have a little more time than I thought I was going to, we have already met this past Monday and are recommending 3 bills. We will bring them to you formally next month at the meeting to vote on endorsement, because our bylaws call for we need 10 days notice for a vote like this. But here are the bills, and these are really significant bills in terms of what's going on at the federal level. So Senator Wiener has put forward a bill called the No Kings Act, which basically allows any Californian to sue federal agents that violate their constitutional rights. That is a very important one. It is speeding through the legislature. It may be the first bill that was just approved by the Senate yesterday, so now it goes to the Assembly. But our board also approved that one, Santa Monica Dem Club board. So I'll be writing an advocacy letter from the board, and then we will vote on it as a club next month to hopefully endorse that one. Another one, SB 895. This one is very interesting because it's to put a ballot measure on the November ballot, which will be a bond, a health and science bond, to replace a lot of the cuts from the federal government on medical and medical research. So, it's a $23 billion bond to be on the November ballot, basically to backfill everything that is being cut from the federal government. And the third one that the committee approved on Monday was put forward by Assembly Member Bryan. It's about peace officers not being allowed to moonlight as ICE. So as you know, we already have a policy that the police are not to cooperate with ICE on immigration enforcement, but we have some officers that are moonlighting and getting extra work as ICE, which seems to run contrary to that. So this bill basically prohibits peace officers from doing that and to help with any immigration enforcement. So that already, right off the bat, the first week, those are 3 bills that we identified that we want to move forward with. If you want to come to one of our meetings, you'll be able to hear what are some of the top bills, what's going on in the state legislature. And if you have ideas for bills that you think we should support or really bad ones that you think we should oppose, I also want to hear about that. So please feel free to be in touch about that. I'm also going to give a short report on we have an ad hoc community action committee. And I've been working, Lynn, do you want to stand up again? Lynn's very busy on these committees. So Lynn has been working with me. Community action has to do with mainly protecting our immigrant community. And we got started especially when there were so many raids in Los Angeles. And whether you hear about them a lot now or not, I mean, Minneapolis is in the headlines, but I'm plugged into all these networks. These kind of raids are still happening in Los Angeles every day. They may not be at the top of your news, but there were some that happened today. So this keeps happening. We have some materials, and I want to call out Patricia Hoffman, who's online, also has been involved with this committee. We have some materials that I urge you to take with you. First of all, we have the red cards. You may know something about these. This has one side in English, one side in Spanish. It talks about your rights if you're approached by ICE, either at your home, on the street, anywhere. I urge you to take this with you so you know your own rights, but also to give out to anyone you may know, anyone who you employ, who you do business with. Give out these. I give out these cards all the time, especially to immigrants who are vulnerable, and to help them know their rights and to refer to if anything happens to them. The other cards that are here are these dark brown cards. This is West Los Angeles Rapid Response. They are the most active group in this area. They're working in Santa Monica, Sawtelle, Venice, Culver City, West LA. This is the number to call if you spot ICE in the community. So if you see them, if you're part of a rapid response, you'd be documenting and so on, but you can help just by calling this number and letting them know, because what they will do is they'll send out a trained team of volunteers to document and so on and verify and then spread the word in the community that ICE is out there. In fact, since we have a few minutes, I think what we could do is I really urge people to have this number in your phone to make it easy to call. So anyone who wants to do this, why don't we just take a minute, take out your phones, and we're going to put this in your contacts. So it's West Los Angeles Rapid Response. I'm going to give you a minute to open it up, type that in. I see people typing. That is great. Okay, good. I'm going to read out the number. 310-513-5539. Right, I'll read it again. 310-513-5539. If you didn't get it, you could pick up one of these cards or come up to me. This is just to report a sighting. You don't even have to do more than that. They will send someone out, because there are also a lot of false reports that go out. I see it on social media all the time. ICE is here, ICE is there. Well, is it true? Is it not? They go out, they verify, and then they have networks to disseminate this information. They also have access to legal help in case people are detained. They can connect them with lawyers and things like that. And they're also doing work to help people who are stuck at home, who are afraid to go out because of these raids, distributing groceries, medications. If you want to do any kind of this volunteer work, also just the mutual aid, helping people that are just stuck at home, afraid to go out these days. I know my housekeeper said her family was even afraid to go to their local market because the local market had been raided and they didn't feel safe to go buy their groceries. This is the local group to contact. And then I see we still have some whistles left. Some of you may be familiar with these whistles, but this is what people are using now. If you see ice, like you're at a car wash or something and ice comes up, blow your whistle. This is a signal to people. You know, you might not be able to yell loud enough or something like that, but the whistle, anyone who can hear it knows that ICE is on the premises and notifies them. So the response groups are asking us to just carry a whistle with you and be ready to use it. So that is what I have from our ad hoc community action group. If you'd like to be involved in doing any of that kind of work, whether it's out on the streets or just helping people in need, let me know and we'll connect you to whoever you need to be connected with. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Isabel. We really appreciate all that you are doing both in the legislative space and in the emergency response space that you're helping the club with right now. Great news. Our next candidate is here. We're pleased to be joined by Sam Sukaton, a longtime progressive activist who I first met as a Democratic Party delegate over a decade ago. And he's running for the Board of Equalization in our region to succeed Tony Vasquez. Let's please welcome Sam Sukaton.
Good evening.
Hang on. Nate, you got it?
Good evening.
Great.
I always wonder, because sometimes it's not really a good evening, particularly this year.
Right, right.
Thank you for making time for me. I was not expecting to go on this early. I know that you've had a bit of a reel of candidates today, and I appreciate your time. I'm sorry I was late. I work for the community college faculty. I'm a union organizer in the LA district. And it's hard getting to my faculty when they're not in school. So I was coming down from the valley through Koreatown. So again, thank you for your forbearance. My name is Samuel Sukaton. Sorry, did I? Oh, absolutely. So sorry about that.
There you go. No, you're good.
I'm a little quieter than most people expect when I say that I'm running for office. I'm Indonesian. If you're wondering about the shirt, it's batik. I wear my community on my back, particularly in these times. I think for those of us who are, I came up in the undocumented rights movement, and I think when I was younger, it was undocumented, unafraid, and unapologetic. And the world is more dangerous now, so those of us who are foreign-born or love somebody who's foreign-born or are willing to take the fight to this administration and those who are targeting, I think we have to be a little more public. So I apologize for not wearing a suit. I hope that's okay. You heard from another candidate for this office. I'm running for the Board of Equalization. Just a show of hands, who recognizes the term? Who's seen it before? Keep your hands up. Keep it up if you know what it does.
Right.
That is okay. I am super excited to tell 5.8 million voters exactly what this job does. So we have California has the only elected state tax commission in the United States, state level tax commission. They used to do a lot of stuff. They still do alcoholic beverages. Insurers, we all have insurance here, right? And land, property. We have spent the last 12 months watching ourselves get extorted and terrorized with our own tax money. Or did I miss last year? Threats to the University of California, billion-dollar lawsuits. The president tweeting and playing games with fire aid, with flood aid, and paying people to hunt us on our own streets. Now, I'm not one of those people that needs, like, California needs to go it alone. We need to join Canada. Like, I don't know how that works. that's not my lane. But We have built something here in California, something here in Santa Monica. The renters' rights movement in Santa Monica, I used to organize with Reverend Jim Kahn. I was at CLU, and he'd tell me these stories about kind of the renters' rights movement, the tenants' rights movement in Santa Monica. We have built institutions that hold values that are both incomprehensible and inspiring to the rest of the world. People talk about California's the fourth largest economy. California's this, California's that. California threw out Trumpism when Pete Wilson came in 1994. Some of you may remember this. When people talk about, 57% of white Americans voted for Trump, if only white voters voted, California would have elected the Democrat every single time. That for generations, we have built an imperfect vision of what this country can and should be, but a better one. And it has always been under threat because we depend on federal revenue for our schools, for our cities, for our counties. I was with Senator Smallwood-Cuevas, and she said, during the SNAP cuts, we all remember the SNAP cuts, middle of last year, that the county had $10 million for folks that were on SNAP, for the 1.5 million Los Angeles County residents who are on SNAP. That's less than $10. Like, how many meals can you make $9 last? We are being held hostage. We are being terrorized. And there are people with whistles and there are people with cameras who are being heroes, but they are doing a job that government should be doing. Yes? The fundamental role of government is keeping us safe. And our government has decided not to do that. We need to expand state capacity. And I say state, not just the government, but the state of California's capacity to keep us safe. I've got state senators, I've got candidates like, we're going to go on strike. We're going to go down to LA City Hall on Friday at 1. This is good. But we need to harden the institutions that we have built to protect our ideals. This is a state that is welcoming, yes? Yeah. How do we fund that without federal dollars? This is a state where women are safe and in command of their own bodies, yes? How do we protect that if the feds cut off money for anyone performing family planning or abortions? We have heard, this is a state that believes in the science of climate change. Donald Trump has instructed the EPA to not even think about climate change at this point. Their staffers are quitting in droves. I'm so sorry. We need to fund our futures, and we need to fund our futures with California money at home. That means we need to tax the rich, split our property roll, and fix Prop 13. Who knows Prop 13 in here? Now, Prop 13 protects homeowners and keeps folks in their homes when it becomes incredibly expensive. But when it passed, all property, commercial property, residential property, we limited the amount that we could tax. Disneyland pays 3 cents an acre on the original park. Did you know this? 3 cents an acre on the best land in the world. And there's a lot of taxes coming up, tax the rich, wealth tax, 100% supportive. We don't actually get enough for what we provide. But they can just Elon Musk and just disappear to Austin or Nashville or the Bahamas. If we're going to fund our future, we need to fund things that won't flee. We have the best location in the world, California's land. California's water, California's coastline draws hearts from all over the world. And the folks that are making billions, trillions off of that, I think the overall assessed land value in California was $3 trillion, are paying 3, 4, 5 cents an acre, never raising their taxes because corporations don't die. They don't inherit. These lands don't get reassessed. Who reassesses these things? Our assessors and the Board of Equalization. There are a lot of, you've met lieutenant governor folks, you've met legislators, you've met the next governor. I don't know who they are, don't ask me, I have no idea who I'm voting for. And they have a million things to worry about. The legislature votes on 3,000 pieces of legislation a year. That's 3 times as much as the US Congress. They're heroes. I'm not trying to be that person. I'm trying to be the guy that sits in the back from LA County, this district is all of LA County, and remind them, how do we fund our future? Tax the rich, split the roll, fix Prop 13. That's all I want to do here. From Santa Monica to Pico Rivera, from Palmdale to Point Dume, and all the way down to Cerritos. the 10,000 residents of the 10 million residents of Los Angeles County, the 5.8 million voters in LA County. I want to build this constituency either as a candidate or elected to make sure that California can fund our future no matter who's president, no matter who's in control of Congress. That we're funding our future and we're putting, where you put your treasure as your heart will be also. And we want to make sure that the institutions and the ideals that we have defended for 3 generations are resourced, are stable, and are sustainable. Again, my name's Sam Sukaton. You can look me up at samsukaton.com. Big West Side fan. I started the Miracle Mile Democratic Club about 15 years ago.
You can believe it?
You weren't even married yet. Good Lord. I'll be available for the rest of the meeting. I don't know how the rest of this goes, but as I've been saying on Zoom, back to you in the studio, President.
Sure, yeah. Well, we have a few extra minutes. Well, first of all, let's, Okay, so let's open it up. We can take 1 or 2 questions. If anyone has any questions about, Mitchell.
How can we afford what we need to spend when we have, let's say, $25 billion unaccounted for? We're spending, okay, do I need to go into it? We don't know where the money has gone. And you want to spend more money, you want to tax more. We don't know where the money is going for the homeless. We just spent, allocated about $27 billion for a train to go underneath the Sepulveda Pass. We have buses that are underutilized. We have the train that's underutilized. And we're going to have a train. We're going to spend another $20+ billion, and we don't have a method to get people into the mass transit. We need an answer to that.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do. No objection there. I think, again, and particularly the Santa Monica Dems, are very good at making sure that your state legislators are tracking this sort of thing. I don't know who's running for Senate. I believe you've endorsed Shai.
Yeah.
I would want to work with Shai to make sure, and we see this in the budget, it's January, it's budget season, that Newsom's saying this money's going to go here, this money's going to go there. There is a lot of space for the Board of Equalization to say, okay, what are you doing with this in budget season? Because a lot of that does happen behind closed doors, and when you have a strong senator, you have a strong assembly member like Santa Monica does, they report that out. That's not getting across to the entire county, and you're absolutely right. That is space for a member of the Board of Equalization to be reporting out. Okay, this is receipts. This is what we took from property tax. Let's look at how our cities are spending it. Let's look at how our schools are spending it. I'll use an example. I work in the community college system. Under Prop 98, about 45% of every dollar in the general fund goes through K through 14. That's kindergarten to community college. And so when I'm looking at the budget, I'm like, okay, is LA getting what it needs? Or are we boondoggling things? Are things disappearing? 100%, we need strong accountability for the infrastructure that we need to be building. Zero question. I'm with you on this.
Okay, we'll go one more question from Craig.
You know, all night we've been hearing about affordability, and I'm wondering specifically the things that you talk about. How much is it under executive order, and how much is it of it in terms of affordability? Prop 13 and that kind of stuff needs to be done by ballot and or community organizing or grassroots organizing.
I'll be frank, this has to go to the voters. It went to the voters in 2020. Do y'all remember Prop 15 in 2020? Anybody remember Prop 15, Schools and Communities First? It was a close thing. It lost by about 3%, 5%, because everybody was inside. Nobody was walking because of COVID. That's my first priority is to get that on the ballot in 2028 again and make sure we make the case. And make sure we make the case about where that money's going. Because they said back in 2020, oh yeah, if we close these loopholes, $12.5 billion is going to come into the general fund. Great. Where does that go? How are we spending that? Granted, that's a governor and legislature question, but again, the road to 2028, I think we have to start this conversation now. Like, that's why I'm running for this office. I'm running for this office so I can talk to 3.5 million Angelino voters about this is what's happening. We got to build to this. We got to build to this. I can't do it. Anybody who tells you I mean, let's be frank. Nobody in the governor's race is saying anything about taxes except Thurmond. I'm here to raise this question, whether I'm in office or not, that state government needs to get information on this. And state government needs to get information. Shy, if he wins, needs to get information on this. And we need to do this community organizing. I love my job. I love my faculty. My dad's a PhD. They're special. Big fan. I lose, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to keep working on 13 from where I'm working right now. That said, if you are looking to point whoever our next governor is, whoever our next state legislative leadership is, in a new direction on revenue, I do hope I can ask for your vote.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks, Sam. All right, Sam will be around if you have any follow-up questions with him. Otherwise, let's go to our next and final guest of the evening, a San Diego Unified School Board member who has spent years working directly in one of California's largest and most diverse school districts, running for Superintendent of Public Instruction. Let's welcome Richard Barrera.
Okay, perfect, yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for sticking around tonight. I'm Richard Barrera. I'm running for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I currently serve as Senior Policy Advisor to Tony Thurmond, our current State Superintendent at the California Department of Education. And as John said, I'm also the President of the San Diego Unified School Board. So we're the second largest school district in California, and I'm in my 18th year on the board of San Diego Unified. Thank you. And, you know, when I think about the attacks that our public schools are facing today, certainly there's a level of intensity here that, you know, we may not have experienced before, but let's face it, attacks on our public schools are nothing new. And in California, we're approaching year 50 of living under Prop 13, which took our public schools from being the best resource in the country to the near bottom. And that's the experience that most of us have had. I've led a school district now for 18 years under this austerity framework, coming from Prop 13. But I'll tell you, when I was elected to the board in San Diego, our school district itself had been taken over by the downtown Republican business establishment. They elected a majority of the school board, took over the schools. And they immediately went to, let's figure out how to privatize our schools, let's turn district schools over to charters, and mostly, let's narrow our entire curriculum and focus down to what we can measure on once-a-year standardized tests. So let's take arts and music out of the schools, let's take science out of the schools, let's take everything that makes a student actually want to come to school, let's take that away and come with this sort of corporate model of accountability. We fought back against that. When I was elected, it was a coalition of educators, parents, students, community organizations that came together and said, we believe our public schools are more than that. And when I was elected as part of a new education majority, we immediately went back against that austerity mindset, and we immediately said what we need is investment. So first, we invested in our educators. So a district that had been kind of hoarding money in reserves or outsourcing jobs, to private companies, we insourced and we invested directly in our educators. So our base salaries have gone up by 40% over the last decade. We provide fully paid family health benefits. We're about to embark, the last couple of nights actually in San Diego, we've moved forward with the most ambitious plan to provide affordable housing to our educators anywhere in the state. We've approved housing for 20% of our employees, where nobody will pay more than 30% of their income on housing costs, whether you're a teacher or a custodian or a food service worker, all levels of the income scale. We've also gone to our voters 4 times and said, are you willing to make some sacrifice to invest in our school facilities? And they've said yes again and again and again and again. By the way, in a city that's notorious for being pretty cheap, and not being willing to invest. But when we asked, are you willing to invest in your schools? Our voters said yes 4 times. And today we have an $11.5 billion facilities program that's larger than the entire state of California's facilities program. And that means our students are going to school in state-of-the-art facilities that's creating careers for people. I represent a portion of the district in San Diego that's first-generation students, immigrant families, and we're making sure that families in our communities are actually getting the jobs in agreement with our labor unions to do the work to revitalize our schools. It's all about investment, and that strategy of investment rejecting austerity has led to San Diego Unified actually being the highest performing large urban district in the country. So on the most recent what they call Nation's Report Card, the NAEP, among all large urban districts, we rank number 1 in literacy, tied for number 1 in math. Among all large urban districts in California, we're number 1 in literacy, in math, in science, in graduation rates, in college and career readiness rates. All because we've chosen to invest in our educators and rejected this idea that we should be getting by with next to nothing and that that's good enough for our schools and for our students. It's not good enough for our schools and for our students. We know that the teachers here, in Los Angeles, are in negotiations right now because the school district's sitting on a $5 billion reserve. You can't do that. If the taxpayers have invested in our schools, you got to put that money into the classrooms, into the educators. That's what we've done in San Diego. That's what we should be doing up and down the state. And we should be going to the voters and saying, yes, we're the 4th largest economy in the world, which means we have the resources to make sure that our class sizes are lower, to make sure that our educators are paid better, to make sure that we have enough aides in our classroom to work with our students with special needs, and to make sure that our facilities are what they should be for our students. We can take this investment model up and down the state, and we will see results, that come from it. Our students will do better. We are California. We should be first in creating the best public school system in the country and in the world. Our parents, I'm a first-generation American. My dad came here from Colombia. But our parents, our grandparents, they invested in our public schools, and we benefited from that. And it's our turn, this generation, to create the greatest public school system that we've seen, and most importantly, to leave that legacy for our young people and for future generations. That's what we can do together. I was honored just this weekend to receive the endorsement of the 310,000 members of the California Teachers Association. They know, absolutely, they know that it's our teachers, our educators on the front lines who are closest to our students who should be driving the solutions, not people sitting in corporate think tanks, not people in chambers of commerce. It's our frontline educators that should be driving solutions. That's been our experience in San Diego. We've seen the results of that. I believe we can take that throughout the state. Thank you. Sorry, no entiendo.
All the infraestructura, lo bajaron con dólar chino o dólar canadiense, dólar mexicano. El dólar, porque this no is for the credit, fair reserve.
Thank you so much for
Thank-
coming in late, sir.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. Yeah, yeah.
Did you? Okay.
Yes.
Just move.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
well,
yes.
Okay. Okay, you go ahead, and then you go ahead. No, go ahead. Do you mind, Richard, just providing the microphone?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Hi, John. Yeah, nice to meet you. Congratulations for what you've done down in San Diego. It's incredible. That's that transformation. So the question for you with that performance, are parents no longer like interested in charter schools? Is that starting to go downhill? I mean, is it really? Are people seeing that?
We heard John's question. Are people coming back into our district schools? I want to introduce a couple of people on my campaign team. This is Ralph Nzunza, our campaign manager, Mahalet Shibre, our deputy campaign manager. I've known Mahalet since she was an elementary school student in the district that I represent in City Heights. The middle school and high school in particular that Mahalet went to used to be under-enrolled. So people, again, first generation neighborhood, parents were choosing to either send their kids to charter schools or put their kids on buses and, go up to the northern part of town, not go to our neighborhood schools. And frankly, if you were to look at the quality of our school facilities, when Mahalet was growing up, I don't blame those parents. I mean, we had facilities that essentially were sending a message to our parents saying that we don't care about your kids. We have completely renovated those facilities, beautiful facilities now. And by the way, not just the buildings, but the programming. We've brought back, a music program that had basically been eliminated in the schools that Mahalet went to. A robotics program, middle school sports. We now have a waiting list for Wilson Middle School, a school that had been under-enrolled before. Same thing in schools in Logan Heights in my district. All throughout our district, the investment that our taxpayers have been willing to make in our facilities is sending the opposite message now. It's that we believe in our young people, and we're willing to be there and support them. And we are seeing students come back into our neighborhood schools. We had a neighborhood school that had converted to a charter school that just converted back and is now a district school because the educators believe that, they can do a better job being part of a district, being part of a union, and parents believe in that as well. So, yeah, I believe our example is that when we invest, parents will respond, and our students will come back in. The housing crisis is very real. It creates a problem for us. I know here in Los Angeles and San Diego and most of the expensive areas throughout California, it makes it harder to recruit and retain educators, but we're also losing enrollment because families with young kids can't afford to live, in a lot of parts of California anymore. As a school system, we can either sit back and say, hey, housing affordability is a real problem for us, but that's somebody else's problem to solve. That's a city council's problem to solve, or a county government or the state. What we've said in our district is, no, we're going to be part of that solution. So when we go out and move forward on plans to build 3,000 affordable units, that's for our employees, but many of our employees who are themselves parents, that's investing back into a strategy that creates affordable housing. We actually have the opportunity in California on school district property alone to build 3 million units of affordable housing. 3 million units. There was a study by Berkeley and UCLA a few years ago that shows school districts collectively in California own 75,000 acres of property that's not being utilized right now that could be developed into affordable housing. And that's how we make a real dent in the solution. So as a school system, we need to step up and say, if we have a crisis that's affecting our kids and our educators, we actually have to be part of that solution, not wait for somebody else to solve that problem for us.
Thank you. I want to ask the next question regarding mental health and safety. It's a big crisis in many districts.
Yeah.
And here in Santa Monica High School this week, a robo voice called in a bomb threat to the school, and it was a major concern for all of Monday, all the students. What is your plan to improve mental health support for students, and how do we, since the pandemic, it's been a whole different vibe of going to school. So how do we get everybody back on track?
It has, and let's be very clear about the degree to which social media has contributed, to rising mental health challenges for our young people. So San Diego Unified, again, our experience in our district, we've set 4 key goals, for our students that we pay attention to. Of course, we want to improve reading. Of course, we want to improve math. We want to improve college and career readiness, so career pathways, so students are ready to, are ready for the world post-graduation. But the number 1 goal that we've set is student wellness. Because we know that if we don't have the conditions created at school that make a young person feel connected, feel like you've got something to contribute, all the rest becomes very hard to deal with. And so what does that mean? And again, it's coming back to investment. First, it's recognizing at the base level that we need to create environments in our schools that actually improve wellness, improve mental health, as opposed to actually make mental health conditions worse. I'm going to give you one example. There was a study a few years ago in San Francisco in a high school, and they looked at, they sort of did swabs of students and looked at isomeres, sort of like, what's your actual physiological age of 15 and 16-year-olds? And it was, it was a study, and the parents agreed to participate. Sure. But what they found was 15 and 16-year-olds had the physiological age of 75-year-olds because of the degree of stress, that students were facing. And we know that that's multifaceted, and a lot of it happens away from school. But what can we do at school to actually improve conditions? And so that high school redesigned its program, again, to get away from a focus on standardized testing and to create a focus on wellness. Let's get the kind of programs in here that make students feel connected. Let's make sure that all of our educators are trained to connect to each student so we don't have students who are falling through the cracks. Some of it is design and physical environment at the schools. And after a couple of years of this, they did the same thing. They swabbed the kids again, and they were back down to 16, 17 in physiological age. And I know that sounds like a crazy sort of example, but it also tells us a lot that the environment, look, we've got our students for 6-7 hours a day, at least 5 days a week. So the biggest experience that a student has is actually their time in school. So if we make sure that schools are places that students feel connected to, that they want to be a part of, that they can contribute, we see academic results start to go off the hook. I lead the effort at California Department of Education about reducing chronic absenteeism throughout the state. Chronic absenteeism is also post-COVID, has achieved sort of a level that we had never seen before, coming down, but still at, levels that are too high. But what we know from the best, national research is that chronic absenteeism is really kind of a proxy measure for wellness in schools. Because if you create conditions that students want to be at, you see your chronic absenteeism rates come down. And so investing in wellness is actually I think, the top priority for our school systems. And of course, that means, at higher levels of what a student's dealing with, counseling, even clinical, therapy. We need to do that for some students. But for all students, we need to create that environment that makes students connected, actually makes families connected. That's why the community schools model is so important, because it's about, connecting families to community level resources. Again, the kind of thing that we might have in the past thought about, well, that's not the job of schools. The job of schools is, to teach reading and writing and arithmetic and all that. Yes, and if we want to help kids along the way in their academics, we need to create environments, especially for students who are facing the biggest stressors outside of school. School needs to be the place that kids want to be at. I'll give one short example of this again, and I'm sorry for taking so long on this issue, but I think it's so important.
It's really important.
One of the schools in my district used to be called Memorial Middle School. We've completely rebuilt it, but Memorial Middle School had a reputation that parents didn't want to send their kids there. They felt it was not safe. They'd rather put their kids on a bus, have them, go outside the neighborhood. But what was starting to happen with the teachers and the principal at the school is they were very focused on creating a sense of community and belonging. So the principal told me a story of on a Saturday where they had Saturday school. So school starts, the kids come in, they lock the gates. And a couple of hours into the Saturday school, a kid is climbing the gates to get into school. And the principal, says to this student, hey, you're one of our best students in terms of Saturday school. This is really about making up, for kids who are falling behind. You don't need to be here. The student said, what I've been dealing with all weekend is abuse at home, violence in my neighborhood. This is the only place I feel safe that I want to be at. So the weekends are the hardest part of my week, and I want to be at school. And so I'm willing to climb the gates to get back into, back into school but that's because the school said, we're going to create a space that no matter what else is happening in our kids' life, they feel connected and safe here. And that's what we can do in our public schools everywhere. And I think it has to be really our number one priority.
It's beautiful. Thank you. We have time for one more. Craig's had his hand up for a while, so we'll let him ask.
I'm fascinated by how you've done this, and I'm specifically worried about those that fall below 10 percentile, 20 percentile. Did you do anything specific, to address them other than what you said, made it a safe environment?
Yeah.
So that they're motivated?
Yeah.
In reference to wanting to, be here?
Yeah. So, thank you for that question, because it's actually exactly what we do. So in San Diego Unified, we set goals for the district, schools set their goals, but we make a particular focus on what we call spotlight students. So it's the students who tend to fall through the cracks, tend to fall the farthest behind. That's who we focus on first. And because we know that if school doesn't get it right for that group of students, there's not a backup plan. Their parents can't afford private tutors. They're not, So we've got to create the right conditions to support those students who are furthest behind. And of course, that starts with, do we know these students by name? Do they feel that they have trusted adults, at school? Do they feel that they're understood? And then can we tailor strategies to those students? Because we know that any student is capable of doing great things. And if a student is falling behind, it's not because that student's not capable, it's because our system has not figured out how to support that student in terms of what they need. So that's our focus. So when we think about how we're improving on these 4 goals, reading, math, college and career readiness, and number 1, wellness, we start with asking each school and each teacher in every classroom to identify your 5 or 6 students in your classroom that are falling farthest behind, and let's make sure we've got a strategy that's focused on that group of students. And that's actually where we've seen the biggest gains. That group of students, what we call spotlight students, their graduation, so 2 years ago, the group that we identified across the district as spotlight students had a graduation rate of about 25%. The district's graduation rate overall is 90%. But that same group of students got to a 60% graduation rate in this class of 2025 that just graduated. So it's possible. You can actually make progress, with the students who are facing the biggest challenges if we decide that that's going to be our focus as a school system. And so again, I just think it's about how does the state, CDE, support local districts so that they know that this is possible and they know what strategies actually work, and let school leaders come together in their own professional learning communities around the state, learn from each other, and see what's possible, see the progress that's possible. But I appreciate that question. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Thanks so much. Yeah. So Richard and Sam are both going to be here as we wrap up if you have any questions for them. But just wanted to remind everyone the next meeting is here, February 25th. We'll be joined by Javier Barrera, Stephen Bradford, and Oliver Ma, and of course, our own mayor, Carolyn Tarosis. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.